One of the most painful truths about fake friendships is that they are often built on convenience rather than genuine connection. A fake friend is not primarily interested in knowing your character, your values, or your inner world. Instead, they are drawn to what you represent. It might be your popularity, your resources, your emotional support, your professional connections, your social status, or even your willingness to constantly put their needs before your own. As long as you provide something they value, the friendship appears warm, supportive, and effortless. But the moment that benefit disappears, so does much of their interest. This is why it's important to pay attention not only to how someone treats you during good times, but also to what happens when your circumstances change. If you lose your job, experience financial hardship, become less available, or simply begin prioritizing your own well-being, does the friendship remain intact? Or do they gradually disappear, become distant, or even critical? People who value you for who you are stay connected through changing seasons. People who value what you provide often leave when the benefits stop. Another revealing sign is the quality of their curiosity. Genuine friends ask about your thoughts, feelings, dreams, and struggles because they care about your experience. Fake friends often steer conversations back to themselves or only become attentive when your story somehow benefits them. They may remember details that help them get something from you while forgetting the things that truly matter to you. You may also notice an uncomfortable imbalance in the relationship. You are expected to listen, help, encourage, and show up, yet when you need support, they suddenly become unavailable or dismissive. Over time, you begin to feel more like a resource than a friend. This imbalance can be subtle, making it easy to rationalize or excuse, especially if you've invested years into the relationship. One of the hardest lessons is accepting that being useful is not the same as being loved. Real friendship is rooted in mutual respect, empathy, and appreciation for each other's humanity. When someone consistently values your usefulness more than your authenticity, they are revealing the true foundation of the relationship. Paying attention to these patterns rather than isolated moments allows you to distinguish genuine connection from relationships built solely on personal gain. One of the clearest ways to recognize a fake friend is by observing how they respond when good things happen in your life. Most people assume that conflict reveals the strength of a friendship, but success often tells you much more. Genuine friends celebrate your victories because your happiness does not threaten their sense of self. They feel joy when you succeed because they care about you, not because they are competing with you. A fake friend, however, may appear supportive on the surface while quietly feeling uncomfortable with your achievements. This discomfort rarely announces itself directly. Instead, it appears in subtle behaviors. They may minimize your accomplishment by saying it wasn't a big deal, quickly change the subject to themselves, or remind you of someone who has achieved even more. Sometimes they offer compliments that contain hidden criticism, leaving you feeling strangely deflated instead of encouraged. You may walk away from the conversation wondering why sharing something exciting suddenly made you feel guilty or embarrassed. Ironically, these same people may seem far more comfortable when you're struggling. They become unusually available during your setbacks, not always because they genuinely care, but because your difficulties restore a sense of balance that makes them feel less insecure. They may enjoy being the advisor, the rescuer, or the person who appears to have everything figured out. As long as they feel one step ahead, the friendship feels safe to them. This dynamic is often rooted in comparison rather than connection. Instead of seeing your life as separate from theirs, they measure their worth against your progress. Every promotion, healthy relationship, personal breakthrough, or achievement becomes something they unconsciously compare with their own circumstances. Rather than asking how they can grow, they focus on why your success makes them feel smaller. Healthy friendships are not built on competition, they are built on mutual encouragement and emotional generosity. A true friend has enough emotional security to applaud your growth without fearing that it somehow diminishes their own value. If you consistently notice jealousy disguised as humor, indifference replacing excitement, or subtle attempts to diminish your accomplishments, pay attention. The people who genuinely belong in your life won't just stand beside you during difficult times. They will stand and cheer when you rise, because your success feels like something worth celebrating, not something they secretly resent. One of the most confusing characteristics of a fake friend is that they can appear incredibly generous, thoughtful, and supportive at first. They may offer favors, give gifts, check in frequently, or make you feel like you're someone they deeply value. But over time, you begin to notice that their kindness is rarely unconditional. Every act of generosity seems to come with an invisible contract. Whether they say it openly or not, there is often an expectation that you will repay them with loyalty, attention, favors, or agreement. Their kindness is not freely given. It is an investment from which they expect a return. This dynamic can be difficult to recognize because healthy friendships naturally involve give and take. Real friends help one another because they care, not because they are keeping score. A fake friend, however, often remembers every sacrifice they have ever made for you, while conveniently forgetting everything you have done for them. During disagreements, they may suddenly remind you of all the times they helped you, making you feel indebted for accepting what once seemed like genuine support. You may also notice that saying no changes the atmosphere of the relationship. The moment you decline a request, set a boundary, or prioritize your own needs, their warmth begins to disappear. They may become distant, passive-aggressive, or openly disappointed. Instead of respecting your limits, they make you feel selfish for having them. This is because the friendship was never based entirely on mutual respect. It depended on your willingness to meet their expectations. Conditional kindness often creates emotional pressure. You start questioning your own decisions because you don't want to seem ungrateful. You may find yourself agreeing to things you don't want to do simply to avoid conflict or guilt. Over time, this slowly erodes your confidence and makes the friendship feel more like an obligation than a safe relationship. Healthy friendships allow room for individuality, disagreement, and personal boundaries without turning every interaction into a transaction. Genuine generosity does not demand constant repayment or emotional obedience. A real friend offers support because they value the relationship itself, not because they expect control, influence, or special treatment in return. When kindness consistently becomes a tool for creating guilt, obligation, or silent debt, it is worth asking whether you are experiencing authentic friendship or carefully disguised emotional manipulation. Fake friendships are rarely sustained through honesty and mutual respect. More often, they are maintained through subtle forms of emotional manipulation that leave you questioning yourself instead of questioning the relationship. Rather than communicating directly, a fake friend may rely on guilt, comparison, or inconsistency to influence your behavior. These tactics are often so understated that you don't recognize them until you've spent months or even years feeling emotionally exhausted. Guilt is one of the most common tools. A fake friend may imply that you are selfish for spending time with other people, pursuing your own goals, or simply saying no to a request. They rarely ask for what they want in a straightforward way. Instead, they make comments that leave you feeling responsible for their disappointment. You begin making choices not because they reflect your values, but because you're trying to avoid the discomfort of feeling like you've let someone down. Comparison is another powerful strategy. Instead of appreciating your individuality, they subtly measure you against others. They might mention how another friend is more loyal, more available, or more successful, leaving you with the sense that you're constantly being evaluated. These comparisons create insecurity and encourage you to work harder for their approval, even though that approval never feels consistent or secure. Emotional inconsistency is perhaps the most confusing pattern of all. One day they are affectionate, supportive, and deeply engaged. The next day they become distant, cold, or dismissive without explanation. This unpredictability keeps you focused on restoring the relationship rather than examining whether the relationship is healthy in the first place. You start analyzing every conversation, wondering what you did wrong, when in reality their shifting behavior is creating confusion that gives them emotional control. Over time, these patterns can significantly affect your self-confidence. You may become overly cautious, constantly monitoring your words and actions to avoid upsetting them. The friendship begins to feel emotionally draining rather than emotionally safe. Healthy friendships don't require you to earn stability through perfect behavior. They allow honest conversations, mutual respect, and the freedom to disagree without fear of emotional punishment. When someone repeatedly uses guilt instead of communication, comparison instead of encouragement, and inconsistency instead of reliability, they are not strengthening the friendship. They are creating an unhealthy dynamic where your emotional energy is spent managing their reactions instead of enjoying a relationship built on trust, respect, and genuine care. One of the most overlooked sources of wisdom in any relationship is your own emotional experience. Long before your logical mind is able to explain why something feels off, your nervous system is often picking up on subtle patterns that signal emotional danger. This doesn't mean that every uncomfortable feeling is proof that someone is a fake friend. Anxiety, past experiences, misunderstandings can all influence our reactions. But when a particular friendship repeatedly leaves you feeling confused, emotionally drained, anxious, or as though you have to become someone else to maintain the connection, those feelings deserve careful attention rather than immediate dismissal. Many people have been taught to ignore their instincts in order to appear kind, forgiving, or understanding. They explain away repeated disappointments by telling themselves that everyone has bad days or that they're simply being too sensitive. While compassion is valuable, constantly dismissing your own emotional reality can keep you trapped in relationships that slowly erode your confidence. Fake friends often benefit from this self-doubt because the more you question your own perceptions, the less likely you are to recognize unhealthy behavior for what it is. Pay attention to how you feel before, during, and after spending time with someone. Do you look forward to seeing them? Or do you feel a sense of tension before every interaction? After the conversation ends, do you feel understood, respected, and energized? Or do you replay everything in your mind, wondering whether you said the wrong thing? Healthy friendships usually create a sense of emotional safety, even when difficult conversations occur. You don't feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells or trying to predict another person's mood. Your body can also communicate what your conscious mind overlooks. Persistent stress, tightness in your chest, difficulty relaxing around someone, or feeling emotionally exhausted after every interaction may be signals that the relationship is demanding more than it gives. These reactions are not automatic evidence that the other person is malicious, but they are important pieces of information that shouldn't be ignored. Learning to trust yourself doesn't mean assuming the worst about people. It means becoming curious about recurring emotional patterns instead of automatically explaining them away. Your intuition becomes more reliable when it is grounded in observation rather than fear. When your emotional reactions consistently align with repeated experiences of disrespect, manipulation, inconsistency, or dismissal, they are inviting you to examine the relationship honestly. The goal isn't to judge others harshly, but to recognize that healthy friendships should leave you feeling accepted, valued, and emotionally secure far more often than they leave you feeling uncertain or diminished. Many people believe that the fastest way to discover whether someone is a genuine friend is through confrontation. They imagine sitting the person down, pointing out every hurtful behavior, and demanding honesty. While direct conversations certainly have their place in healthy relationships, fake friendships often reveal themselves much more clearly when you begin setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. They are guidelines that communicate what you need in order to feel respected, emotionally safe, and valued. A genuine friend may not always understand your boundaries immediately, but they are generally willing to listen, adapt, and respect them. A fake friend often experiences your boundaries as a personal attack because those boundaries limit the control, access, or benefits they have become accustomed to receiving. Something as simple as saying, "I can't help this weekend, I'm not comfortable discussing that," or "I need some time for myself," can completely change the dynamic. If the friendship has been built on mutual respect, your decision will usually be accepted, even if it causes temporary disappointment. If the friendship has been built on convenience or emotional dependence, you may suddenly encounter anger, guilt trips, silent treatment, criticism, or accusations that you've changed. This reaction is incredibly revealing. Healthy people understand that every relationship includes limits. They recognize that saying no to a request is not the same as rejecting the person. Fake friends often blur that distinction because they have grown accustomed to unlimited access to your time, attention, emotional support, or resources. The moment those expectations are challenged, their frustration becomes visible. Boundaries also expose another important truth. Genuine friendships are flexible, while unhealthy ones are often rigid. Real friends adjust to life's changing circumstances. They understand that careers evolve, families grow, responsibilities increase, and personal priorities shift. They don't demand that you remain exactly the same person you were years ago simply to preserve their comfort. Fake friends, however, often resist your personal growth because your increased confidence makes you less available for manipulation. Perhaps the most empowering aspect of healthy boundaries is that they remove the need for constant testing or confrontation. You don't have to convince someone to reveal their character. You simply begin honoring your own needs consistently and observe how they respond over time. People who genuinely care about you usually move closer through mutual respect and honest communication. Those who valued only what you provided often distance themselves, become defensive, or attempt to pressure you back into old patterns. In many cases, your boundaries don't destroy the friendship. They simply reveal what kind of friendship it always was.